There is a hotel on Palm Jumeirah that 3 weeks ago was charging over $600 a night and still could not keep up with demand. Completely sold out. Peak February season. The moment every year when the entire world is trying to get into Dubai simultaneously. When waiting lists stretch for weeks because there is simply no space left. When hotel managers don't discount, they don't negotiate, and they definitely don't beg. They just point to the waiting list and tell you to try again next month. That same hotel is now offering a stay and dine package for 349 dirhams per person, under $100. And the full amount can be spent on food and drinks inside the hotel itself. The Andaz Palm Jumeirah is advertising a one-bedroom family suite for $123 a night. A Burj Khalifa view apartment that normally costs $272 has dropped to $191. These are not promotional offers. These are not limited time deals designed to drive early bookings for next season. These are desperation prices. The kind of numbers you only see when something has gone genuinely, seriously wrong. Because right now, these rooms are not being booked, not in small numbers, at scale, across an entire city that has gone from record-breaking occupancy to below 20% in the span of a single weekend, in the middle of what should have been the most profitable tourism period of the entire year. And that is exactly where this story begins. Because just days before all of this, Dubai was doing what it has spent 3 decades perfecting, operating like a machine. A finely calibrated, relentlessly efficient machine that takes global demand and converts it into record-breaking tourism numbers with a consistency that no other city on Earth has managed to replicate. 19.5 million visitors projected for 2025. Hotels running at near full capacity, some of the highest room rates in the world. Departure boards packed with incoming flights from every continent. The whole system humming at full speed. Exactly as designed, exactly as expected. And then, in the span of a single weekend, that machine stopped. Resorts that were fully booked sitting empty. Rooms that were impossible to secure suddenly available at prices that make no logical sense. Departure boards dominated by cancellations rather than arrivals. So the real question here is not why the prices dropped. The real question is something more fundamental and more unsettling. How does a city that built its entire global reputation on stability, precision, and absolute reliability unravel this fast? To answer that, you have to look at what actually happened on February 28, 2026. Because on that date, everything changed in a way that no pricing strategy, no marketing campaign, and no luxury experience on Earth could possibly contain. Iran launched retaliatory strikes on the United Arab Emirates. Following coordinated attacks by the United States and Israel, missiles, drones, and cruise missiles crossed into UAE airspace. And in that moment, the tourism engine Dubai had spent decades building did not slow down. It collapsed. In real time. Within days, data from Smith Travel Research circulating among hotel operators showed occupancy dropping between 35% and 60% in the first week alone. Luxury properties across Palm Jumeirah and downtown Dubai reported occupancy levels below 20%. Some internal projections suggested the number could fall into single digits in the weeks that followed. And it did. Major hotel groups including Accor, Marriott, and IHG all acknowledged sharp booking declines across the region. Eddie Bazan, executive director at Majestic Hotels, which manages 450 rooms across 3 Dubai properties, described what they were watching in real time. The next 2 weeks look very, very slow, with roughly 70 to 75% of bookings canceled within just 2 to 3 weeks, directly because of the conflict. This was not a slowdown. This was a collapse unfolding in full view of the industry. And then came the timing, which made everything worse. Eid al-Fitr falling on March 19th and 20th was supposed to be one of the most significant travel windows of the entire year. The moment when visitors from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar flood into Dubai for extended weekend getaways, filling hotels, restaurants, beach clubs, and malls, with the kind of regional demand that Dubai's hospitality sector plans its entire calendar around. That surge never materialized. Even Eid week, which had been projected months in advance as peak demand, collapsed under the weight of cancellations. Bookings that had been confirmed for weeks disappeared almost overnight. turning what should have been maximum occupancy into empty inventory at the worst possible moment. Simultaneously, the aviation sector began breaking down. More than 700 flights canceled by Emirates and Etihad in under 2 weeks. Around 20,000 passengers stranded, unable to leave or enter the country. The MSC cruise ship carrying 6,300 passengers sat anchored at Dubai port, unable to disembark because the outbound flights its guests needed no longer existed. MSC eventually canceled all remaining winter sailings in Dubai entirely. Zoom out, and the scale becomes almost difficult to absorb. Tourism economists projected the Middle East could lose between 23 and 38 million international visitors in 2026 compared to previous forecasts, total losses ranging from $34 to $56 billion in visitor spending. One industry estimate put Dubai's losses alone at approximately $500 million every single day, during the period when the skies were effectively closed. This was no longer just a tourism problem. This was an economic shock detonating inside one of the most tourism-dependent cities in the world. But if you really want to understand why this crisis hit Dubai so hard, you have to stop looking at the numbers for a moment. Because this was never just about bookings. What Dubai lost was something much deeper and far more fragile than occupancy rates. It lost the foundation of its entire global appeal. Every major destination in the world is built around a clear and specific promise. Paris sells history. The Maldives sells beaches. Kyoto sells culture. Tuscany sells landscape and wine, and the feeling of being somewhere that time has softened into something beautiful. Dubai made a different promise entirely. Dubai sold certainty. The guarantee that no matter what was happening in the region, no matter what the headlines said, no matter what the geopolitical situation looked like from the outside, you could arrive, spend extraordinary amounts of money, and everything would unfold exactly as expected. Flights on time, hotels flawless, experiences controlled to the smallest detail, nothing unexpected, nothing uncomfortable, nothing wrong. It wasn't just a destination, it was a controlled environment positioned in the middle of one of the world's most unpredictable regions. Almost like a Swiss bank, but for tourism. The world outside could be chaotic. Inside Dubai, the machine ran perfectly. And that is precisely what makes this moment so dangerous for the city. Because a brand built entirely on safety does not fail gradually. It does not erode slowly through competition or price pressure or changing tastes. It has exactly one breaking point. The moment people are shown clear, visible, undeniable evidence that the promise was never absolute. On February 28, 2026, that breaking point arrived. Smoke rising from Palm Jumeirah, fire at the Fairmont Hotel, debris striking the Burj Al Arab, evacuations at Terminal 3 of Dubai International Airport. For years, the idea of regional instability had existed only in headlines, distant, abstract, and carefully disconnected from the Dubai experience. Something that happened elsewhere, in other parts of the Middle East, in countries that Dubai's marketing implicitly positioned itself against. Now it had a visual. Images, footage, smoke over the skyline that Dubai had spent decades making synonymous with prosperity and safety. And that changes everything. Because here is something worth understanding about how tourism actually works. The damage to a safety brand is never proportional to the physical impact of the event itself. In reality, the UAE's air defense systems intercepted the vast majority of the attacks. Across all the strikes, 4 people were killed. Most hotel properties remained operational. The city was functioning again within days. Flights resumed by March 7th. By any objective measure, the physical damage was limited. But that is not how tourism decisions get made. Tourism does not run on facts. It runs on perception. And once those images were uploaded, shared, and repeated across millions of screens around the world, they did not disappear when the flights resumed. They stayed. They accumulated. And they began, quietly, decisively, reshaping where people chose to go next. And you can see that shift in the individual decisions people started making. A Scottish tourist named Victoria Thompson, whose family was having dinner at the Fairmont when it was struck, said afterward that she no longer knew when she would feel comfortable returning to Dubai. She is not alone. She is simply the visible, named reflection of a decision that millions of people are making silently. They open their travel apps, they see Dubai, and without much deliberation, without strong emotion, without even a clearly articulated reason, they move the cursor somewhere else. Not because the hotels aren't ready, not because the flights aren't running, but because something less visible has shifted. Something that doesn't respond to a press release or a recovery announcement or a promotional package. Trust. And once trust shifts at this scale, it does not return on anyone's schedule. It does not recover because operations normalize, which means what is happening right now in Dubai is not a temporary disruption waiting to resolve itself. It is the beginning of a recovery process that is going to be significantly longer and more complicated than any previous crisis the city has faced. But here is the part of this story that almost nobody is talking about. The strikes didn't create Dubai's vulnerability. They exposed it. Even before February 2026, the foundations of Dubai's tourism model were already showing cracks. Hidden beneath the record-breaking headline numbers, invisible to anyone who wasn't looking closely. Start with supply. By early 2026, Dubai had 818 hotels, with more than 152,000 rooms. Roughly 67% of that inventory sat in the luxury and upscale segments. Another 12,000 luxury rooms were already in the construction pipeline, and the warning signs were already there before a single missile was fired. In 2024, luxury hotels increased their occupancy, but their average daily rates fell. More rooms filled, at lower prices. Hotels were already discounting to maintain demand before any conflict arrived. A pattern that had previously triggered a multi-year pricing collapse between 2015 and 2019 was quietly beginning to reassert itself. Now, those same properties are sitting at 20% occupancy with prices cut in half. What took 5 years last time is happening in weeks. Then there is the structure of demand itself. Dubai's tourism economy truly functions at full strength for roughly half the year, November through April. The remaining months bring temperatures above 40 degrees and humidity levels that make outdoor tourism genuinely difficult. During that period, prices drop sharply and occupancy falls with them. The strikes didn't hit randomly. They hit at the precise moment when Dubai generates the majority of its annual tourism revenue. The most valuable weeks of the year. Gone. And then there is a deeper structural issue, one that Dubai's own tourism leadership has acknowledged in quieter moments. For years, the city focused on spectacle, landmarks, luxury, scale, superlatives. The biggest, the tallest, the most expensive. And in doing so, it created a perception that has proved increasingly difficult to shake. That Dubai is impressive, but thin. That beneath the spectacle, there is no deep human story, no history that roots the experience in something beyond the hotel room and the observation deck. And that matters enormously in this moment, because a destination without deep cultural roots relies entirely on delivering a flawless, uninterrupted experience. The moment that experience is disrupted, even briefly, even minimally, the alternatives that offer history, authenticity, and genuine cultural depth become dramatically more attractive by comparison. And those alternatives are not theoretical. They are operating right now, at full capacity, with no disruption. Greece, Japan, Italy, Southeast Asia. Destinations that are actively absorbing the demand that was redirected away from Dubai in real time. Travelers who had already planned, budgeted, and in many cases partially paid for Dubai trips, who redirected those same resources, that same budget, that same holiday window, toward places where the confidence still felt intact. The global demand for travel has not weakened. It has simply moved. And this is what makes recovery harder this time than any previous crisis Dubai has navigated. During COVID, every destination was disrupted simultaneously. When travel resumed, the competitive landscape was roughly as it had been before. Everyone was recovering from the same shock. This time, Dubai is recovering alone. While Paris, Tokyo, Athens, and Bali continue operating normally, continuing to accumulate visitor experiences and loyalty and word-of-mouth recommendation. The travelers who left Dubai have already discovered alternatives. They have already built new habits. They have already told their friends about somewhere other than Dubai. And history is clear on what perception shocks of this scale require in terms of recovery time. Not weeks, years. Dubai's hospitality sector employs hundreds of thousands of workers. The housekeeping staff, the restaurant servers, the concierge teams, the drivers, the tour guides, the activity coordinators. The invisible workforce that kept the machine running at 94% occupancy and made every guest feel like the experience was effortless. The majority of them are migrant workers. People who left home, left Pakistan, left India, left the Philippines, left Nepal, to build something in Dubai, sending money back every month to families who depend on that income with a reliability that cannot absorb a sudden 75% drop in hotel occupancy. When the bookings collapsed, their hours collapsed with them. When the cancellations flooded in, their contracts became uncertain. When the hotel groups entered crisis mode, the first thing that gets quietly restructured is labor cost. And that restructuring always flows downward to the people with the least leverage and the fewest options. They cannot redirect to a different market the way a hotel group can. They cannot restructure their operations the way a tour operator can. They cannot move their cursor somewhere else. They are there, in a city that is currently operating at a fraction of its capacity, waiting for a recovery that may take years, absorbing a cost that was created by forces entirely outside their control. The economic damage to Dubai is real and significant, but the human damage, the quiet, uncounted damage landing on the people who built this tourism machine from the ground up, that is the part of the story that never makes it into the Smith Travel Research reports, or the industry briefings, or the luxury travel magazine analysis. It is happening anyway. Which brings us back to what you are looking at right now. The empty resorts. The $100 packages at hotels that were turning away guests a month ago. The silence where there should be the sound of a city operating at peak capacity. None of it is a temporary glitch in an otherwise perfect system. All of it is the gap made visible, the space between what Dubai promised the world and what the world is now beginning to seriously question. And closing that gap is not a matter of reopening hotels, or restoring flight schedules, or running a new marketing campaign with the right message, because this is no longer an operational problem. The operations are largely back. The flights are running. The hotels are open. The problem is belief. The problem is that the specific, carefully maintained belief that Dubai was different, that it was exempt from the kind of disruption that affected everywhere else, that the promise of certainty was real and not just a very effective piece of marketing, that belief has been tested in public, in front of millions of people, with images that don't disappear when the smoke clears. Rebuilding belief takes time, often far more time than anyone involved in the recovery wants to admit. And it requires something that no promotional budget can manufacture directly. Evidence. Repeated, consistent, undramatic evidence that the system holds. That the promise is real. That Dubai is what it always said it was. Dubai has delivered that evidence before. After 2009. After COVID. After every previous test the city has faced. And each time, the recovery was real. But those recoveries happened in a different competitive environment, against a different backdrop, before the images existed, before the alternatives were as developed and as visible as they are right now. The real question is not whether Dubai will recover. It will, in some form, on some timeline. The real question is simpler and harder than that. When people open their travel app 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, and Dubai appears in the results, will they still feel what they used to feel when they saw it? That quiet pull. That sense that this was the place. The one that delivered on its promise every single time. Or will they move the cursor somewhere else? Not because they made a conscious decision against Dubai, but because something has shifted just enough that the choice no longer feels automatic? That is the question Dubai has to answer. And no hotel package, no matter how aggressively priced, is going to answer it for them. If you were planning a trip right now, would you still choose Dubai? Drop it in the comments. Everything discussed in this video is based on publicly available data, industry reports, and economic analysis at the time of recording. This is not financial or travel advice. The situation in the region continues to develop, and circumstances may have changed since this script was written. Our goal is always to give you the clearest, most honest picture of what the data is actually saying. Nothing more, nothing less.